Hello all, welcome back to Answer Writing Initiative at 9 p.m. I'm Guna Mathivanan from Offices IAS Academy. Friends, if you are watching this video series for the first time, please watch the first video in this answer writing playlist to know how to participate in this answer writing initiative. This is open to all, anybody can participate. So what was the question which I gave yesterday? Climate change has emerged as the biggest threat to global food security. In this context, how GM crops help in strengthening resilience towards climate change? Just 10 marks. The main part of the question is how GM crops can help in strengthening the resilience towards climate change. Okay, so major portion of the answer should be how GM crops can be a solution. Okay, so how to introduce? So the introduction can be simple. We can define what is climate change, and we can say how climate change is affecting the food production productivity and how it affects the food security. This can be your introduction, or you can come up with some report. You can highlight some statistics, or you can highlight some uh, suggestions given by some international organization. For example, in our introduction, we have mentioned that the Food and Agriculture Organization has said that the food security faces its most significant challenge in the form of climate change. So many things challenges food security, but this climate change is the most significant challenge. Okay, so how it is becoming a challenge? I have listed out 3 points. For example, when there is increased global warming, the crop yield will be affected. The heat stress will affect the crop yield. And the precipitation pattern, when the rainfall pattern affects, that will result in water scarcity. This warmer temperature will be more conducive for the proliferation of pests. So more insects, more pests, that is going to affect the crop yield. So like this, you can list out few points. So what is most important in the introduction is link the climate change with the food security. Tell how climate change is affecting the food security briefly. That is not the main part of the answer. Then from here, you link it to GM crops. So in this backdrop, genetically modified crops will be a solution to address the problems raised by climate change. GM crops help in strengthening resilience towards climate change. That can be a subheading, and you can come out a list of points. Explain how GM crops can be a solution. Introduction, you're linking climate change and food security. You can link it directly, or link it with some statistics, or link it with some report, right? And you can explain how food security is affected by climate change with 1 or 2 points. Then say how GM crops can address this problem. Explain how GM crops can address this problem. You need not explain what is GM crops here. Okay, so you can say when you genetically modify, basically you modify it to strengthen the crop. For example, if you take BT cotton, I have explained about GM crops in a separate video in the hit list series. Go and watch that, you will get more clarity. So BT cotton, uh, the regular cotton was facing attack from an insect called as bollworm, pink bollworm. Now, when we genetically modify, what we did, we took the genes from soil bacterium called as Bacillus thuringiensis. We took a gene from the soil bacterium and we were attaching it with what? Attaching it with the cotton. So the cotton DNA was modified. The cotton DNA was modified. It was modified using the genes taken from the bacteria. And that made the cotton more stronger. So the pink bollworm was not attacking the cotton anymore because the cotton became more stronger. Right. So this is one way how GM crops is helping to protect the crops from the pests invasions. In Argentina recently, in order to make wheat more drought resistant, what they did, they took some genes from sunflower. From sunflower, they took some genes and they were attaching it with the wheat. So wheat was genetically modified to withstand the drought. So this genetic modification can be done to withstand the drought, to withstand the heat stress, to withstand the pest attack, to improve the productivity, to improve the crop yield. To this genetically modified crops can be tuned in such a way that it is consuming less amount of water, so that can help in efficient resource management. Everything is going to withstand the impact of climate change. This GM crops, when it is modified properly, then it will show resilience towards the climate change. That you highlight how GM crops can help in addressing the issues. It can withstand higher temperature, it can be drought tolerant. Mention some examples. Argentina example you can mention, BT cotton example you can mention. See, because of this global warming, the sea level is going to rise. This rise to sea level, that will result in seawater intrusion, salt water intrusion into the soils. The salt water intrusion into the soil will make the soil saline. If it is saline, then again crop yield is going to get affected. So we can come up with genetically modified crop which can tolerate higher soil salinity. So a proper genetic modification will help us in effectively using the resource to combat the climate change. However, go to the conclusion. However, there is some challenges associated with GM crops. Again, you have no space for explaining climate change challenges. I mean, GM crops challenges, and that is not the question. So, in concluding note, you mentioned there is challenges. The challenges can be related to health. It can be related to environment, right? So there are health challenges, environmental challenges. So what is required is, before giving approval for GM crops, safety assessment is very important. Rigorous safety assessment is very important. Field trials has to be conducted properly. It has to be scientifically, it has to be assessed, so that human health as well as environment should not be compromised. This can be a conclusion. Very simple answer, right? So Kritika, your answer is neat. You have adhered to the word limit. You have defined how climate change is affecting the global food security, and you have mentioned the threats to food security. So drought, desertification, how climate change is going to affect the food security. You have mentioned few points. Then you have went to GM crops and food security, right? All your points are correct. So nothing to comment much. And you have also mentioned about challenges briefly. This is fine. This is completely fine. Briefly, you have mentioned about challenges. Since you are able to effectively manage the space, it's fine. Or you can merge these challenges with the conclusion also, no problem. Kritika, your answer is good, really neat. Felix, yes, so food security is what you have explained. Then directly you went to climate change and food security. That is fine, right? So GM crops and resilience, increasing yield, resistant to drought, nutritional loading. Yes, food security includes nutritional security also, right? So by using genetic modification, we can add more nutritional capacity to the crop. So this genetic modification will also address the nutritional security aspect of food security. Insecticide resistant. Yes, of course, yes, but try to explain that link point. So protection against insect pest is fine. How this is connected with climate change? Just mention climate change, global warming, increase in pest. So from that pest attack, we have to protect our crops. So genetic modification becomes a solution for that problem, right? So yes, challenges like Kritika, you have also briefly explained. Great. Conclusion is also fine, right? So next is Kavya. See, Kavya, look at your introduction. The question is not India specific, but your introduction is India specific. It talks about global food security, but you are mentioning a fact mentioned by Global Food Policy Report, which talks about pushing India into hunger because of climate change. So instead of India, you can say that many developing countries. That would be fine here. Don't explicitly say India because the question is not Indian context. Okay, rest is fine. How climate change affects, then how GM crops can show resilience. All those points are completely fine. Risk also you have mentioned. Conclusion is fine. In my opinion, risk and conclusion can be merged to save some space and word limit. Yes, sir. Yes, again, your presentation is neat. Just one suggestion. So when I look at your answer, I see a lot of empty space. I see a lot of empty space. So what you can do is you can slightly bring this here. You can slightly bring this here. You can increase the size of your font. Still, it will look neat, but this empty space is giving some negative impression. Okay, that alone you address Points I have read already, everything is neat. Everything is neat. Okay. So, yes, question for today. As an emerging power in the current global order, India can use the Shanghai Cooperation Organization to protect and promote its geostrategic and geo-economic interest. Discuss. The question is about Shanghai Cooperation Organization and India. Explain accordingly. I hope the initiative is adding value in your preparation. So, see you tomorrow. Till then, bye. Take care.